After his life on the screens, Dick Van Dyke, who is famously known for his contagious smile and humorous lifestyle on television, has not been lucky to live the life of a main character in a happy ever after story. His life has been far from glamorous as shown on TV. About marking a century since birth, his life has been marked by unrelenting hardships and profound sadness. In this video, we'll delve into the heart-wrenching story of Dick Van Dyke's life. Stick around because it's not what you think.
I'm 95, and the last thing I remember, I was 80.
Dick Van Dyke's early life and career. Dick Van Dyke's illustrious career spanned 7 remarkable decades and saw him working in nearly every medium, from the vibrant stages of vaudeville to the airwaves of radio and the glitz of television, and he found success in pretty much all of them. With his winning smile, fearless physicality, and courteous manner, Van Dyke charmed audiences well into his 90s and showed no signs of stopping. Richard Wayne Van Dyke was born on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri, and emerged from the humble beginnings of Danville, Illinois, growing up amongst a number of people who would go on to careers in show business. Notably, high school pals Donald O'Connor and Bobby Short ventured into acting and jazz singing, respectively, while a close friend was the cousin of the renowned Gene Hackman, another illustrious Danville resident. Despite growing up around so many creative people, Van Dyke was originally planning to join the priesthood, inspired by his mother's devout religious belief. Eventually, a high school drama class illuminated his true calling: acting. Van Dyke's journey took a dramatic turn. He resolved to use his performances to touch lives and elicit smiles, an ambition once destined for the priesthood. In 1944, during his senior year of high school, Van Dyke's patriotic spirit led him to drop out, enlist in the Air Force, and contribute to World War II. After being denied several times due to being underweight, he was eventually accepted for service as a radio announcer, marking the inception of his entertainment career. After the war in 1947, Van Dyke was working as a radio DJ back home in Danville when a friend of his named Phil Erickson approached him about starting a comedy duo. They soon became Eric and Van, the Merry Mutes, a pair of mimes who found great success touring across the country, eventually settling in Atlanta, Georgia. The next year, Van Dyke married his first wife, Margie Willett. The couple would go on to have 4 children, including Van Dyke's future co-star, Barry Van Dyke. After finding success in radio and vaudeville, Van Dyke soon moved on to the nascent format known as television, appearing on WDSU-TV New Orleans Channel 6 as a comedian and later as the main host of a comedy program. Dick Van Dyke's first appearance on screen. In 1954, Van Dyke made his first network TV appearance on an episode of Chance of a Lifetime. He soon landed guest spots on shows such as The Phil Silvers Show, The Pat Boone Chevy Showroom, and The Polly Bergen Show. In 1959, Van Dyke made his Broadway debut in the show The Girls Against the Boys and crushed it. This led director and choreographer Gower Champion to cast Van Dyke in the lead role of Albert Peterson in the musical Bye Bye Birdie, which ran from 1960 to 1961. Despite his initial hesitations, and for someone who had never danced professionally before, the show was an exceptional hit, and Van Dyke won a Tony Award for his amazing performance. He would go on to reprise the role for the 1963 film adaptation, which was a hit at the box office. By this time, of course, Van Dyke was already a superstar, thanks to a groundbreaking sitcom that bore his name, The Dick Van Dyke Show. Throughout his career, Dick Van Dyke's instinctive physical comedy relied on the reaction of a live audience. When CBS cast him in The Dick Van Dyke Show, he made sure the studio came equipped with the technology needed to host a live audience in-house during tapings. He says comedians only do half the work when doing comedy shows without an audience. He believes the audience gives the timing, and you can only work with an audience. While the three-camera setup was a relatively new and technically difficult method of shooting at the time, it was immediately essential to Van Dyke's wildly popular sitcom. CBS embraced the format, eventually becoming the standard for sitcoms across the networks. Dick Van Dyke achieved remarkable success with The Dick Van Dyke Show, winning 3 Emmy Awards, and the show itself receiving the prestigious Outstanding Comedy Series Award 4 times. Notably, he transitioned into a movie star during the show's run, highlighted by his roles in Disney's Mary Poppins, playing Bert and Mr. Dawes Sr. Despite some film setbacks in the late 60s, like The Art of Love and Divorce American Style, he returned with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Van Dyke showcased his legendary dramatic skills in The Comic, a film by Carl Reiner, earning critical acclaim. Returning to television with The New Dick Van Dyke Show, where he portrayed a local TV talk show host alongside Hope Lang, the series unfortunately faced cancellation after 3 long seasons. Undeterred, Van Dyke made a remarkably ick recovery, receiving an Emmy nomination for his intriguing role in the TV movie The Morning After, where he portrayed an alcoholic businessman. This portrayal somehow resonated with his journey, having recently overcome his struggles with alcoholism. Unfortunately, his real-life challenges led to the end of his marriage with Margie Willett, with the divorce finalized in 1984. Dick Van Dyke's personal life. On February 12, 1948, the charismatic Dick Van Dyke and Marjorie Willett exchanged vows on the captivating radio show Bride and Groom at the elegant Chapman Park Hotel in Los Angeles. They had 4 children: the vivacious Christian, the dynamic Barry, the charming Stacy, and the delightful Carrie Beth. However, their marriage faced challenges, leading to a prolonged separation and eventual divorce in 1984. In 1976, Van Dyke embarked on a romantic journey with the enchanting Michelle Triola Marvin, and their enduring companionship spanned over 30 years until her poignant passing in 2009. In a surprising twist, at the age of 86 on February 29, 2012, Van Dyke tied the knot with the youthful 40-year-old makeup artist Arlene Silver, whom he had encountered 6 years earlier at the Emmy Awards. Van Dyke orchestrated the involvement of his children and grandchildren in his television ventures. Son Barry, grandsons Shane and Carrie, along with other Van Dyke kin, made captivating appearances in various episodes of the long-running series Diagnosis: Murder. Although Stacy remained relatively unknown in showbiz, her appearance in the Diagnosis: Murder Christmas episode Murder in the Family, as Dr. Mark Sloan's estranged daughter, Carol Sloan Hilton, added an intriguing dimension to the family narrative. Impressively, all of Van Dyke's children have embraced marriage, contributing to the creation of a family with 7 grandchildren. Notably, his son Chris served as the district attorney for Marion County, Oregon, in the 1980s. Throughout his illustrious acting career, Van Dyke not only graced the screen with his presence, but also dedicated himself to teaching Sunday school in the Presbyterian Church, where he held the esteemed position of an elder. His commitment extended to the exploration of profound theological works by luminaries such as Martin Buber, Paul Tillich, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer. On August 19, 2013, the 87-year-old Van Dyke found himself in a gripping incident, being rescued from his blazing Jaguar on the US 101 freeway in Calabasas, Los Angeles County. Miraculously unharmed, he emerged from the fiery scene, leaving behind a charred vehicle frame. In politics, Van Dyke publicly endorsed Bernie Sanders in the 2016 Democratic Party presidential primaries. This endorsement was reiterated in the 2020 primaries, with Van Dyke passionately supporting and campaigning for Sanders. In July 2016, while fervently campaigning, Van Dyke expressed profound fear about Donald Trump's potential to lead the nation into a war, declaring that he has not been that scared since the Cuban Missile Crisis. He thinks the human race is hanging in a delicate balance right now, and he is just so afraid Donald Trump is going to lead the country to war, losing his loved ones. For anyone, losing a lifelong companion is always a very dreadful and heart-wrenching experience. For Dick Van Dyke, losing Michelle Trelal in 2009 was particularly painful, and it marked a massive turning point in his life. According to the Washington Times, Michelle Triola, better known as Michelle Triola Marvin, passed away at 76. Considering Van Dyke's extraordinary longevity, this age could be regarded as middle-aged even though it is fairly advanced for most. Although Michelle Triola is perhaps best known for her lengthy 6-year relationship with actor Lee Marvin, she had a long and lasting relationship with Dick Van Dyke. Triola had taken Marvin's last name while they were together, but she was not legally married to either Dick Van Dyke or Lee Marvin. One of the most significant events in her life and history would be the lack of a formal marriage. However, their relationship ended in 1970 when Lee Marvin stopped providing the previously agreed-upon financial support, sparking a protracted and widely reported legal battle. Palimony, which refers to monetary support payments given when cohabiting unmarried couples separate, was created as a result of this legal dispute. This landmark case is now regarded as a significant legal precedent for cases that are similar to and would go on to influence legal history. Dick Van Dyke found Michelle Triola's death especially difficult for reasons other than the simple grief of losing her. He had also suffered the loss of his ex-wife's battle with cancer in 2008, the year before. Van Dyke made the conscious decision to project hope and confidence even after learning that she had triple lung cancer, especially when she inquired about her prognosis. In reflection, he said that whenever she asked about it, he would tell her that he didn't know, calling it the hardest acting he had ever done. Death of Van Dyke's wife and granddaughter. Dick Van Dyke and Margie Willett's marriage got started going through its roughest phase in the early 1970s as a result of their respective addictions. She constantly abused prescription drugs, and he had become seriously addicted to alcohol. Their relationship slowly deteriorated as a result of his rising stardom and lavish lifestyle, which prompted him to have an extramarital affair with Michelle Triola. His marriage with Margie Willett eventually came to an end in 1976, when he came clean about the illicit affair, and they divorced in 1984. Dick Van Dyke was deeply affected by Margie Willett's death in 2008, even though they had not seen each other for a long time. He described her as the best thing that had ever happened to him. Dick Van Dyke's 13-year-old granddaughter Jessica Van also died in 1987, as a result of Ray's syndrome causing tragedy in the family. While attempting to treat her chickenpox symptoms with aspirin, Jessica, the daughter of his son Christian Van, acquired Ray's syndrome, an extremely rare and severe illness. Jessica's condition worsened despite medical efforts, ultimately resulting in her untimely death. Coping with anxiety and alcoholism. In the entertainment industry, Dick Van Dyke is highly regarded by many to be one of the most gregarious and contagiously joyful personalities. Even though he has played the detective Mark Sloan in the relatively serious TV series Diagnosis Murder for a long time, he has had many career high points where his remarkable gift for physical comedy and self-assured, slightly goofy happiness takes center stage. It is natural to think that someone who appears joyous and gregarious on screen is an enormously extroverted individual who always exudes optimism in social situations. But nothing could be further from the truth than this assumption. Van Dyke opened up about his lifelong battle with extreme shyness, particularly when it came to approaching strangers, in a 2016 interview with Entertainment Tonight. He admitted being very shy with strangers and couldn't talk to people. To manage this crippling shyness, Van Dyke resorted to drinking. He found that drinking would make him more approachable and social, as it would help him relax and break down the walls that shyness had erected around him. But as they say, the disease was worse than the cure. The darker side of his struggle to overcome shyness was revealed by his eventual problems stemming from his reliance on alcohol as a social crutch. Additionally, Dick Van Dyke revealed a sincere and intimate story about his battle with shyness and the unintended consequences of trying to overcome it with alcohol in a 2016 appearance on Oprah. Where Are They Now? Van Dyke disclosed that his early attempts to overcome his shyness resulted in an addiction. It was, he said, a hard and drawn-out battle. Van Dyke clarified that he needed a significant amount of time to kick his addiction. He was never able to give up drinking until he was in his middle years. During this time, he had to confront the painful truth that he had been turning to alcohol as a crutch to help him deal with his social anxiety and shyness. He said he was surprised to learn about the addictive tendencies in his personality because he had never known about them before. He went on to explain that his drinking had become more frequent over time, going from having one martini to 3 or 4 whole bottles. His drinking increase, along with the underlying shyness he was trying to hide, eventually caused him to struggle with addiction. Countless individuals have profoundly benefited from Dick Van Dyke's courageous decision to openly share his tumultuous battles with substance abuse. He receives letters from people deeply moved by his compelling story on the Bullseye with Jesse Thorne podcast on Maximum Fun. Many admirers have expressed that his unflinching honesty served as a powerful catalyst, inspiring them to confront and seek treatment for their own struggles with alcohol. Van Dyke takes immense pride in knowing that individuals who once harbored embarrassment about acknowledging their alcohol-related issues have discovered newfound courage and support through his candid confession. Dick Van Dyke's arduous journey through alcoholism was, without a doubt, protracted and extraordinarily challenging. As detailed by The Fix, Van Dyke delved into the harrowing toll that his addiction exacted on his mental well-being in a 2013 interview with The Telegraph. He candidly disclosed reaching a profound state of despair, emphasizing the severe negative impact on his mental health. Plunging into a deep depression as a direct consequence of his addiction, Van Dyke candidly admitted contemplating self-harm. In his own poignant words, he described being in deep trouble, acknowledging moments of despair where thoughts of suicide consumed him, making it seem impossible to persevere. The turnaround. Nonetheless, Van Dyke's struggle with alcoholism and depression underwent a sea change. He said that he noticed a big shift when he started to get tired of alcohol in general and found that it was no longer appealing to him. The first unpleasant physical symptoms he experienced after drinking alcohol were nausea and dizziness. This signaled a significant change in his perspective on alcohol, as he no longer found drinking to be appealing. He referred to this modification as a boon. Van Dyke underlined that beating his addiction required teamwork. He sought assistance from a variety of sources at various times in his life, such as Alcoholics Anonymous and rehab. These networks of support were extremely important to him on his path to sobriety and recovery. In the end, he was able to escape the clutches of alcohol addiction thanks to his willpower and the assistance of these resources, which resulted in a happier and more contented life. According to The Guardian, Dick Van Dyke told a startling and nearly plausible account of a true close call at sea in which a pod of porpoises came to his aid in a 2010 interview with Craig Ferguson. The story starts when Van Dyke dozed off on top of a surfboard and discovered himself in a dangerous situation. When he woke up, it was terrifyingly clear to him that he was out at sea and far from the safety of the shore. Naturally, panic broke out when he realized how dire his situation was. Van Dyke saw something swimming around him while he was paddling in the open water. He initially assumed the worst and believed that sharks were all around him. To his great relief, these enigmatic swimmers proved to be porpoises. These playful and intelligent marine mammals appeared to sense the actor's distress and rescued him. In a breathtaking demonstration of their compassion and animal instinct, the porpoises started pushing Van Dyke and his surfboard back toward the shore's safety. Ultimately, this unexpected and touching encounter kept him out of a potentially fatal circumstance. Although this story of a porpoise rescue may seem almost too unbelievable to be true, it's crucial to remember that Dick Van Dyke is the main source of this information. Because the story is based on his memory, it is best to be taken with a grain of salt. Nonetheless, it's important to note that reports of dolphins, which are closely related to porpoises, helping people in need in the ocean exist. Therefore, even though the story seems unbelievable, it is not completely implausible. A few years later, in August 2013, the entertainment legend was involved in another, much less poetic, but no less terrifying, incident. A picture of a wrecked Jaguar sports car was shared on his official Twitter account with the amusing remark, "Jag for sale, real cheap." But this wasn't just a joke on social media. Dick Van Dyke, then 87 years old, was driving along Route 101 in California when all of a sudden, his sports car mysteriously caught fire, according to The Guardian. Van Dyke was able to miraculously stop safely to the side of the road despite the gravity of the situation. But he needed to be helped out of the smoking car by onlookers because he was unable to do so on his own. Van Dyke was pulled to safety, but not before the car caught fire, as reported by TMZ, the first outlet to report on the incident. Thankfully, Dick Van Dyke survived the fire and came out of the burning car unharmed despite the fierce flames and the gravity of the situation. In addition to demonstrating his flawless comedic timing, his hilarious tweet about the incident, "Used Jag for sale, real cheap," also demonstrated his grit and ability to keep his sense of humor even in the face of a potentially fatal situation. Van Dyke's smoking habits. Dick Van Dyke maintained an extraordinarily active lifestyle and was committed to his well-being even after reaching an age when many people would have chosen a more passive one. The Chicago Tribune reported that he was still going to the gym daily, even though he was 89. His dedication to fitness was so great that he wrote a book on advanced age fitness, demonstrating his love for leading a healthy lifestyle far into old age. But it's important to remember that Van Dyke had bad habits as well. Smoking played a big role in his past. His smoking was by no means a casual habit, as the Washington Post reported. He could smoke up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day as a heavy smoker. He was honest enough to admit that he was addicted to nicotine. According to Van Dyke, quitting smoking is the hardest addiction there is. He found it extremely difficult to break the habit. Over the years, he tried to stop smoking multiple times, but it wasn't until a crucial moment that he was able to give up. He described the turning point in his fight against smoking by stating it was the worst of all addictions, and breaking free from it was incredibly challenging for him. The sobering realization of the harm he had caused to his own lungs was what finally drove Dick Van Dyke to give up smoking. His wake-up call came from the X-ray that showed he had scars from emphysema, which motivated him to quit smoking right away. Van Dyke was able to successfully give up smoking, but the effects of his previous addiction persisted. According to reports, he has struggled with lung-related conditions such as pneumonia, and at one point, one of his lungs even collapsed. Mysterious heartbeat sounds in the head. In 2013, Dick Van Dyke experienced a mysterious and persistent sound inside his head that resembled a heartbeat due to an unexplained neurological disorder. His general well-being was impacted as the condition grew worse despite multiple tests and treatments. A breakthrough occurred when it was discovered that his titanium dental implants were the source of the discomfort and vibrations, following an open call for help on Twitter. Van Dyke's timeless career. After his popular show ended, the talented and versatile Dick Van Dyke continued to captivate audiences on television. He delivered a dramatically and critically successful performance of The Gin Game with Mary Tyler Moore in 2003. The same year, he showcased his acting skills as a doctor on Scrubs. Van Dyke guest-starred in a series of Murder 101 mystery films and returned to motion pictures in Curious George and Night at the Museum, playing a villainous character with aplomb. He even reprised his role in a cameo for the sequel, Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, but it was cut from the film. He released a remarkable solo album in 2017 that showcased his singing and jazz skills. In 2018, he gave a memorable performance as Mr. Dawes Jr. in Mary Poppins Returns, having previously portrayed Bert and Mr. Dawes Sr. in the original film. He was consulted for the series WandaVision and competed on The Masked Singer in 2023, becoming the oldest person ever to do so at age 97. After revealing his identity as Gnome, he received a lengthy standing ovation from the audience and judges. He even sang a portion of Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious from Mary Poppins as an encore. In the same year, he made a guest appearance on the popular soap opera Days of Our Lives, continuing to impress audiences with his talent and charm. Thanks for watching. Click the next video on your screen for more.